what's up? Ken from Palm Beach Dyno here, and we've got another awesome video for you guys featuring two Broncos. We've got Ben from Tin House Customs, Bronco 2.7 liter on the dyno right now, and then my Bronco Raptor is outside, and we're gonna throw that on the dyno next. Now, I realize a lot of the Bronco crowd, some of you people may have a performance background, some may not, so I'm gonna explain things a little bit more than I might normally. A dyno is basically gonna show you how much horsepower there is at the wheels. So, what Ford rates the engine at versus what it makes at the wheel are two different things. So, we're gonna go ahead and baseline it on the stock tune first, evaluate the power, and then we're gonna start the tuning process. Now, don't forget, there's all sorts of benefits to tuning other than the power. Speed limiter raised or removable, higher rev limiter, shift points, transmission, all sorts of things. My Bronco Raptor in particular in sport mode has some weird issues in the transmission that I believe are tune related, so I'm gonna fix that, of course. Anyway, let's do a baseline on this unit and see how much power it makes. All right, we're all loaded up in the vehicle. We're gonna go ahead and do the baseline pull and see how much power this unit makes. I believe they're rated at 330 at the crank. So at the wheels, you know, it just kind of depends on all the factors that go into a dyno, which I'll tell you once we see the graph. All right, let's go take a look. All right, stock, it made 256 and 355. Now, this truck is rated at 330 horsepower and there's drivetrain loss, but there's more to dynoing vehicles. What gear you're in, the tire size, all sorts of things. A Bronco is probably worst case scenario for power. So based on these numbers, we're at about a 22% drivetrain loss. That's not all drivetrain, some of it's gearing. We're doing dynos in 5th gear. So now what we're gonna do is load up our base tune, which this is the very first one we're tuning. So we can just go off prior models, F-150s had the 2.7, things like that, and try to figure out exactly what we want. And then we're gonna work our way up through the process until we wind up with the fully tuned Bronco. So let's see what happens. All right, we got a new tune loaded up. You know, obviously this is the first Bronco I've tuned, so it's a little bit of a guessing game, but we have tunes for 2.7s and other applications. So, you know, we got a rough idea where to start. And I'm not doing everything we would do to the other vehicles. Every time a new platform comes out, I like to just take baby steps with it. So hope you guys enjoy the ride. Not bad on the first hit. Let's go over the numbers. All right, gains on the very first pull, that's great. We went from 256 to 273 and then 355 to 376. So what is that? Almost 20 horsepower and 20 torque. Pretty good, but I think we can make a lot more. Now, we're controlling all sorts of things when it comes to this tune-up. Boost, timing, fuel, cam timing, a lot of things go into this stuff. So we're gonna work our way up and see how high it goes. I made some changes to the tune. Like I said, we're just gonna creep up on it, add a little bit of boost, maybe timing, a little at a time on everything, and just see what we get. All right, man. It's nice to gain on every single pull. That doesn't always happen. Let's take a look. That was a pretty big jump. We went all the way up to 288 and 393. As you can see, the curve is getting smoother. Just in general, it's much happier. There's all sorts of things we can do. Hopefully we can make it RPM a little bit better, but I'm just gonna try to raise the overall power first, and then we're gonna work on the power curve. So let's make some more changes. All right, everything's still looking good in the log. I made more changes and we're just gonna keep going. Nice. Just keeps going and going and going. All right, 298 and 406, first time over 400 torque. As you can see, it's similar, except up here, we were able to make it RPM better up here. Now, that's another thing to mention for those of you guys that are new to dyno numbers. This is showing you 298, but that's at 4,300 RPM. That peak power is actually all the way down here. So any gains I make up here aren't gonna show in the main number, but it's still very important. So, for instance, right here, that gain was, it went from 10 horsepower right up there, but that's not gonna show here. We did pick up 10 horsepower over here as well, but up here, 10 horsepower. So hopefully we can make it over 300. We're practically there, and 300, 400 would be good, but we're just gonna keep going until we can't see any more gains. All right, we're still looking good, so just making changes, a little at a time. This one has some cam timing changes. Hell yeah, man. This thing is killing it. All right, 305 and 423. That's awesome. I feel like this is a great spot, but we got to keep going. Anyway, as you can see, mostly, torque is going to be greatly affected by where you get into it and how quickly the turbo spools, and some of that will depend on the heat of the turbo. So the torque numbers sometimes aren't as comparable as the horsepower numbers, because in this case, I got into it a little bit earlier, the turbo spooled up earlier, so we made a huge gain in torque, but is that real or not? I'm not sure. All through here, the power and torque are similar, and then all of our gains on this one were from about 4,400 and up. So let's keep making changes. I made a few more pulls, didn't really see any gains, so there's no point in showing you guys that stuff, but I think I know what was holding me back, so let's pick up where that last one left off and see what kind of power this thing makes. Nice, 317, let's look at it. Will we hit 320? I don't know. It'd be nice to hit 330, which is the rated crank horsepower. Based on the log, I'm not sure there's that much left, so let's show you what we got. All right, I took quite a few pulls there. I skipped forward. I don't want to bore you guys too much, but 317 and 419 torque. Obviously, we made 423 here, but like I said, some of that has to do with how it spools up. Let me move this out of the way for a second so you can see. So there's only very minor differences there. The real difference is RPM. So now we've moved peak power all the way out to 5,200. It's pulling much harder through here. Huge gains in this area from 4,700 up through almost 6,000 RPM. So I don't think that's the top though, looking at the log. So I'm gonna make a few more changes and see if we can at least get it up to 320. All right, I looked over the log. I made a couple changes. I don't really think there's a ton left here, but what I am gonna do is try one more pull. I really wanna hit 320. There it is. All right, let's go take a look. Now keep in mind, we're doing this in extreme temperatures. It's over 90 degrees in here, 50% humidity, South Florida, middle of the summer. So, there's definitely potential to make more than this, but this is a great power number for a pretty much bone stock Bronco. So let's go over the numbers. There it is, 320, 422. Very, very cool, very excited about that. And again, I made some changes up here that are not gonna show in the peak numbers, but it picked up a few horsepower up here as well. We're gonna call it good here. Everything on the log looks phenomenal. We're gonna get this off the dyno, load up the Bronco Raptor, and see what that beast makes. All right, got the Bronco Raptor all loaded up onto the dyno, and we're gonna go ahead and do a baseline first, of course, just so we know where we're at, and then start turning up the boost. I did a couple pulls because I wanted to see how it would move around. All right, there's your baseline, 327 and 317 on the second hit, 10 horsepower loss back-to-back pulls. There's lots of reasons for that, and they're all heat related, I would say. Not only is it crazy hot here in the dyno room, this truck is completely stock. And one thing I didn't really notice, because we really haven't been messing with the vehicle because we couldn't tune it, so now is the time, is none of the heat extractor stuff in the hood works. There's no holes in the hood, but I believe I can remove that plastic piece and make it work. So I'm gonna do that. That's free. The first thing will be an intercooler from CV Fabrication. So make sure you subscribe if you're interested to see where we can go from here. But like I said, 10 horsepower loss on the second pull, 18 on torque. Now, of course, I could just use the 317 numbers to make my numbers look good, but I like to show you guys what is really going on. So I'm not gonna allow a complete cool down on every run with a tune, but we're gonna try to make it consistent so it's more like the 327 number, as that is probably gonna be more repeatable once we upgrade some of the cooling, which is totally recommended. We're just tuning the stock vehicle so you guys know what the tune does, and then all the parts we're gonna add in subsequent videos, we'll show you the rest of the story. Anyway, let's get a tune loaded up and see what it does. All right, I've got a base tune loaded up based on, like I said, previous vehicles that we've tuned. The last Bronco, Explorer ST, they all share similarities. One thing to note is this Raptor is 100% stock. Also, I'm not gonna go through every little detail like we did on the previous Bronco because it's the same process and I don't wanna bore you guys. I know you guys just wanna see the numbers. I just thought it would be a good look into the process of tuning, but here, we might go through it a little bit quicker. Anyway, let's make a hit on this tune. Man, that was a big jump right away. 367, 412, and the RPM, this thing pulls hard up top, real hard. Let's go take a look at it. Oh, there you go, 367 from 327, 40 horsepower gain from the hit. Now, of course, we haven't tuned a Bronco Raptor before, but we've tuned plenty of Explorer STs, all the Ecoboost stuff. There's variations of how things work, but in general, if you know how to tune one Ecoboost, you really should know how to tune them all. Again, 40 horsepower peak, but if you go to, say, out here, right at, say, 5,900, we went from 300 horsepower to 365. So again, you really need to know how to read a dyno graph to interpret the results. This is at peak, but we're 65 horsepower at 5,800. So we've got lots more to go on this. And don't forget, we're gonna be putting ethanol in this unit at the very end, probably E30-ish. Maybe can go higher. I know people run E50, but I'm just being a little bit conservative here. Again, everything we do here, I'm doing the opposite, I believe, as to what most people do. They pick the best baseline, they show the gains the best, but that doesn't do me any favors because the minute you guys start ordering tunes and you don't get the results in the video, then it doesn't help me. So I'm giving you results I think you can achieve easily. So let's make some more changes. I bet there's a lot more left. All right, everything looked great on the log, but we're just gonna try to make more power. So in this case, a little bit more ignition timing and more boost. Pretty much everything across the board. Big pickup in torque. Lost a little bit up top. We'll have to see what happened, but picked up another 12 torque. So we're at 434 and horsepower is up. I'll just go ahead and show you this one real quick. All right, definitely some nice gains down low, but then once we hit about 4,600 RPM, those gains went away. This is how the tuning process works. Every single change is not gonna benefit us. I know exactly what happened there. Just some torque things I have to take care of. So if we can get this to keep going, we're gonna be making some big power. So let's see if we can make it happen. all set for the next pull. I am really excited to put E30 in this thing, but I want to get this 93 tune done first. We're almost there. All right, 421. I'm super happy with that. We're at nearly 100 horsepower. Let's take a look at it. There you go, 421. That's pretty much the number I was looking for. I was shooting for about 100 horsepower gain. That's close enough. Obviously, if I would have used the 317 number that we did earlier, we would have made it and you wouldn't have known any different. I'm using the higher number, whatever, big power. But the other real important thing is not this peak number. Read the dyno graph. This is the line right here. Nice and smooth power delivery. I've seen plenty of Ecoboost graphs where it does not look this good, but the peak number looks good. You have all kinds of weird dips and dives in the graph, and I pride myself with really dialing these things in, and I think this thing is dialed. Now, what's it gonna make with some ethanol in it? Well, let's find out. All right, we got the right amount of ethanol added to the vehicle. I will go over that with you guys at another time. I just want to get this video done for you. But we're on E30 with the E30 tune. Now don't forget, once you add the E85 to get to E30, you got to drive it a little bit. I've done all that. Made sure we're good before we make the pull. Holy crap! 441 and 498 torque. Holy cow! Man, oh man. I don't think we're going to do a whole lot better than that. Let's go look at it real quick. Oh my goodness, man. 441 and 498. Now, at first glance, this looks like we only picked up 20 horsepower. Again, peak numbers versus the curve. Every video, I'm showing you guys examples of this. So here in the mid-range, say it's a 4,700, it went from 389 to 426. So that's more like 37 horsepower. But as you can see, the green line is not going to RPM as well, is not RPMing as well as the red line. And that's because of some tune issues, and that's why we're here, right? So this line, if we can continue it up, we should have some pretty significant gains up here. So let's make one more change. So let's make one more change. I'm almost positive as to what's going on here. And let's see if we can make this thing pull all the way to red line. There it is, 459,503. This truck is completely stock besides my tune and E30, and I am ecstatic. And we got it over 500 on the torque. As you can see, compared to the green line, it was tracing it a little bit more, added a hair bit more boost. But here, where the green line fades, the orange line just keeps pulling. So let's compare the E30 real quick to stock so we can look at the gains everywhere. Okay, now look at that power curve. I mean, absolutely amazing. So peak gains are, what is that? 132 horsepower. But here, we're on the stock tune, it's really fading. It's under 300 horsepower, 294 and 458 right there. In fact, I mean, if I really want to give you a more accurate number, 287 to 456. So that's roughly like 170 horsepower, give or take a few horsepower. Absolutely amazing. I'm so pumped up about this program. Of course, if you have an Explorer ST, has the same powertrain, we'll be doing a video on one of those next for the 2025 model. I heard that there's some changes to the turbo and a few other things, although I expect them to perform similarly to this one. Different turbos, different setup, not exactly the same, but it should be similar. So, what's next? We're gonna be doing an intercooler in the next video, and then down the road, we're gonna be doing downpipes and maybe some fuel upgrades from XDI. Who knows? Sky's the limit. Again, like I said, all this applies to Explorer ST. I'm gonna go outside real quick and do a Dragy run and close the video out for you guys with that. And subscribe. I'm gonna get the Raptor unstrapped, take it outside for you guys, and do a quick 0 to 60 Dragy run. It's super, super hot. Still will be interesting to see what it does. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one.